Now this could be a very short video because in truth, just getting your pull-ups stronger is going to eventually lead to you actually being able to do high pull-ups. It's gonna almost certainly be 80% of the progress you're gonna make. And the things we're gonna talk about in this video is just gonna be the salt on top, like the extra 20% you can do to get there a little faster. It's just like getting your first pull-ups. If you worked with band pull-ups beforehand, training full reps will almost automatically increase your explosiveness with bands. This does not stop past bodyweight reps. Getting a respectable weighted pull-up will definitely aid in making pull-ups feel more weightless by proxy. That being said, if these flying reps are a primary and specific goal of yours, there's things we can do in addition to your regular training, which yes, you should continue obviously, because that's gonna be the bread and butter. That's gonna be the fundamentals of what you're gonna have to do to get these high pull-ups. These things are just gonna be a little more specific in order to improve that skill. One thing which is quite obvious is making sure that your technique is on point to be as efficient as possible to produce the maximum amount of power when you pull, and to not lose out on any energy by your grip shifting or like your body being misaligned, which consequently ruins your momentum in the rep. You want to opt for a closer grip around shoulder width, though some people might actually prefer being a little narrower. For example, in my case, I do like a very narrow grip. Even touching your palms together is definitely gonna always be better than being outside of shoulder width, because it just puts your lats into a less advantageous position for maximum power output. Obviously in other contexts that's a good thing because you're gonna be getting more out of less weight in terms of that, but if you want to be as fast as possible in your pulls, which obviously is gonna transfer to a more explosive pull and a higher pull by proxy, taking a narrow grip is gonna be beneficial. Shoulder width, again, if you like it even narrower, just test out what feels good for you and where you feel the strongest, like where you are the most confident in actually getting as high as possible in the rep. Once you actually grip the bar, using like a slight false grip, you don't need to place your thumb over the bar, but even just bringing your knuckles up to the sky and over the bar is gonna leverage that grip much more, and you're gonna be less likely to slip off the bar. And even just tucking in and slipping slightly off the bar is gonna obviously be wasted energy that could have gone into a more strong pull. The more surface area of your hand you can get on there, and the more it stays on the bar during the exercise, the better you're gonna feel while pulling. Your mind just intuitively allows you to put more force into the bar when you are confident in not slipping off. It's just the same as the deadlifts. There, using straps is probably a better thing. Here, I would not recommend it because it puts your wrist in like an awkward position to actually be able to pull as effectively as possible. We're gonna go over the grip a little later. Now, if you can reach the bar with your legs touching the ground, it's gonna be a bit more simple. If you need to jump up to the bar to actually reach it, you're gonna have to execute these next steps a little more quickly, so it's gonna take a bit more practice. It takes a bit more precision. You wanna start a step or two behind the bar, so once you leave the ground, your body moves forward like in a pendulum. This is crucial because it would allow you to take advantage of a function of your muscles called the stretch reflex. Skipping the sciencey explanation, it just basically means that when your muscles reach their end range, they recoil like an elastic band, giving you more momentum for an explosive pull. It just makes the pull easier because you have that extra force going through your muscles. So it's almost like using a band in that sense. It feels the same, but obviously you're not using a band. The elasticity of your muscles allow you to almost bounce through. This might sound a bit dangerous and as if it's bad for your joints, but if you're a decently trained individual, and you have to be in order to even start this pursuit of a higher pull-up, you're gonna be fine. Basically 100%. If you are not on performance-enhancing drugs, I can't guarantee in that case because obviously your tendons are gonna be weaker than your muscles usually when you do use PEDs. Because the muscles just grow that much quicker and they get stronger that much faster. As a natural, there's pretty much no risk. Once your body is just about to swing back, remember the pendulum motion, you use that momentum to pull with every fiber of your back. Speed is the key here, and learning to contract your muscles rapidly takes time. We'll go over that in the next section, but imagining you bring the bar to your waist or wherever you actually want to pull to is a good cue that helped me personally. Before we go over how you actually want to program for the high pull-up practice, I want to go over a common mistake, as some people might misinterpret that saying of trying to make your body as long as possible, and they might start to arc their back, and some people actually recommend that form as opposed to keeping your body tight and in unison. They might argue that that will increase the stretch you get because of the anterior pelvic tilt, which is not the case. And here you can probably already hear which form I actually prefer, which is obviously keeping your body as tight as possible, because it's just gonna make, it just makes more sense. Like keeping that integrity in your body is gonna make the whole pull feel less hard because the whole body moves in one piece. The rigidity is gonna make the pull feel more integral. It just makes more sense because there's no energy wasted by any body part flopping around or like your entire lower body moving some weird way. Keeping it straight and tight is the most beneficial form. It is possible that some people do actually prefer the other way because they have had better results with it. I can't really see it. I recommend, you can try both, obviously. I'm not discouraging you from trying out your way of pulling high. This is just like my experience and what I think makes more sense. In terms of training, I'm gonna keep it very simple because in reality it is very simple. What I did is obviously continue my basic fundamental training, like weighted pull-ups obviously. But whenever I felt like it, I would just go up to, I have a bar here which has a lot more head clearance, so I don't actually bang my head when I try to go for high pull-ups, and like almost greasing the grove GPP style, I would just go up to the bar and perform some high pull-ups. That alone made a massive difference, and within a couple of weeks of doing that pretty much inconsistently, really just when I felt like it, my high pull-ups and like my confidence in actually pulling high has drastically gone up. But again, if you want to specifically train for the high pull-up, I recommend doing it at the beginning of every training session. Could be a pull day, full body day, upper body day, whatever it is. You just want to be as fresh as possible because even like a little bit of fatigue is going to drastically decrease the amount of force you can produce rapidly. And again, it's all about speed in the high pull-up. You want to contract your muscles as fast as possible. And when you have like even a slight back pump or like you did weighted pull-ups beforehand, bodyweight pull-ups will feel easier after like weighted pull-ups because of the post-activation potentiation. So obviously going from like a heavy weight you pull to just your body weight is gonna make your body weight feel much lighter. But if you want to produce force as efficiently as possible, you do have to start out with it. And you'll be the least drained if you, again, practice the high pull-ups outside of any actual training sessions. It's not gonna interfere. Train in a low rep range, 1 to 5 reps at most, because this is really about technique. It's not really about building the muscles of your back, and it's not even really about strength development. It's really just about dialing in the technique and doing it as efficiently as possible, because that's gonna have the biggest impact on how high you can pull. And usually, after you've done a couple of reps, the reps you do after that are not gonna be at the same standard as the first rep you do. And at that point, it's just wasted volume because you really wanna do it as fresh as possible. It's not gonna be a lot of volume, and you're not really gonna feel tired after doing it, because you should. That's why you'd also do it at the beginning of the workout, because it's not really gonna drain you that much for your upcoming sets of, for example, weighted pull-ups. Lastly, I'm gonna go over some tips that helped me, and the first one is very important. It's just not be as pedantic about the form. Don't be a perfectionist, because even like a little bit of a kip or a little bit of a cheat in that sense, it's probably gonna lead to more linear progress, because doing everything with perfect form, it's gonna be harder to progress. It's gonna be much slower to progress. Whereas if you do get used to the movement, even with a little bit of kip, getting rid of that kip is not gonna be as hard as building the technique and the strength all in one. And even if you just do it to impress other people, like having your knees raised a little bit is not the end of the world. For most people, even like bodyweight pull-ups is a hard exercise, which it is obviously. Most people can only do a very few reps of it. So seeing someone actually be like effortlessly pulling themselves to a bar, like waist to bar or even just sternum to bar, is gonna be impressive. And that said, I don't recommend having this as your sole motivation to actually learn this exercise, because it's very vain and it's not really gonna add anything to your life. Most people aren't really impressed by seeing that, and they're not gonna like you more just for that. I used to believe that people would like me if I could do these exercises, but overall, it's just like show-offy and it's not really likable. Do it for your own well-being, and if you want to be able to pull like that, if that's just a satisfying feeling for you as it is for me, I like being able to like effortlessly pull myself to the bar because it just feels, I don't know, it feels good. that's like way more of a healthy motivation for it. You see what I mean? You shouldn't be too bummed out about not being exactly where you want to be, not having like perfect technique. You should really look back and like be proud and happy about what you've actually already achieved. Obviously, don't get complacent with it, and not advocating for that whatsoever, but don't be too strict on yourself. And lastly, very important, do not underestimate the grip. I already went over this just before, but like as a quick recap, you do not want to slip off the bar even a centimeter, because that's obviously wasted energy for the pull, and you want to maximize the amount of surface area you have of your hand on the bar, because that's just going to transfer the force as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And in my case, I actually use builder's gloves for doing this exercise, because the bar I have is it's quite slippery, especially with like sweaty hands. It is not ideal. Which, by the way, I have a bar with quite a lot of head clearance, so I don't actually hit my head when I do the high pull-ups, which obviously is going to lead to you having to bend your knees at the bottom, which is not really a problem. So as long as you keep tight, it shouldn't really make any notable difference. But also the confidence you gain in not slipping off the bar is gonna like mentally get rid of that inhibition to actually pull with the maximum amount of force you have, because you're always like subconsciously afraid of slipping off the bar if you pull too hard. If you have that firm and confident grip into the bar, it's gonna be easier to pull with maximum intensity. And using straps is probably not the best idea, because it puts your hands into like a more awkward position. You're not gonna be able to pull as well using them. In other exercises, which are usually a bit slower, like the deadlift for example, they're obviously very useful, but I don't think in this case they're gonna be very good for you. And obviously using something like chalk and a grip tape or neural bar is gonna have basically the same effect, just I don't really have the access to it in that case, so I use builder's gloves. Even though it looks a bit silly, it works, so I think you should do it. And that being said, I'd be very surprised if after listening to all of this and actually implementing these steps, you'd still not be able to have like a decent high pull-up. Just really not likely that that's the case, but if it is, or if you do have the high pull-ups and I've missed anything that helped you, post it in the comments. I'm sure it's gonna help some people. That's basically all I have to say. See you next time. Goodbye. Have a good one.